Hey, it's your co-hosts Haley and Caitlin popping in with a little motivation to get your week started off right. Welcome back to the Thriving and Wellness podcast. Today, we're going to kind of talk about the difference between discipline and motivation. So I like to describe motivation as more of that like emotion. So like excitement or desire. It's that thing that drives you to take the action. And as we know, motivation is not always there.
Mm-hmm.
And it can really set us back if we're trying to rely on just motivation all the time. So instead, we need to work on kind of developing some discipline. So Haley, do you want to kind of describe how you feel like discipline is, different from motivation?
Yeah, well, I really like what you said about like the emotional piece of it, right? Motivation is really much like that emotional piece of like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get started. And that's great. I love it when we feel that motivation. But with any other emotion, it's going to be up and down. So we can't rely, if we're trying to build lasting change, we can't rely on motivation. Motivation's like the fad diet that's going to get us through a week. And then we're going to be like, forget it. I'm over it. Because as soon as we don't see the scale change, as soon as we have one off day, as soon as we feel like we haven't hit our goals perfectly, oftentimes I see that motivation go right out the window. And that's not going to serve you long term.
Yep. Yeah. So then with discipline, it's like taking the emotions out of it, and it's what we do to maintain the routine or the habits when that desire and motivation isn't really there, because yeah, we have to be able to like make these habits and these changes. So how do you do that when you're not like gung-ho about actually doing it?
Yeah, and maybe this is just because it's the world we live in, like you and I in the food and nutrition world, but I feel like this comes up a lot because people are expecting or waiting until they feel motivated to start working out, motivated to make some dietary changes. And it's interesting to me, it's like we rely on discipline in so many other areas of our life, showing up for work, brushing our teeth. Like there's so many times that I don't want to do that stuff, right? But we do it anyways because we're disciplined and we need to. Whereas with food and nutrition, we often think of like, oh, I want to wait till I'm motivated to feel it. Like we need to be fueling our bodies properly. If you want to feel good, you need to fuel it properly. You need to move your body. You need to do these things, those foundational things that we've talked about. So really being disciplined in these things is crucial.
I feel like one piece where a lot of people struggle with discipline, but it is kind of that like 50-50 of either like you struggle with it in this area or you don't, that is a
Mm-hmm.
little bit separate from health, but it's definitely related to our health, is sleep and going to bed
Ooh,
on time.
yes.
Where I'm like, I have always been the kind of person where I'm like, it's dark, I'm ready for bed. I do not have a problem going to bed on time. Whereas with other health things, I might struggle a little bit more where I'm like, oh, I really need the motivation to like make me want to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. There's some areas of, I think with anyone in any aspect of life where maybe we feel like it's a little bit easier to be disciplined, whether it's something that we enjoy or we truly feel the difference. And I think that's key for a lot of people too. And I think this is an important thing to tie in. What I often talk about with this is instead of waiting for the motivation to come out to get started, we need to get started and show up for ourselves as we are this future person that we want to be, right? We're showing up as them. And then as we start to build this momentum, as you start to see the results, that's when you're going to see that motivation pick up and keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So then like, how do you even start? Like, if you're like, I have no desire to, whatever it is, go to the gym. We were just talking about this, drink your or eat your breakfast before you start drinking
Yeah.
your coffee. If you have no desire to do whatever the habit is, like,
How do you
What's step one? How do you make it happen?
Yeah, I think first recognizing and identifying like where do you want to be? And if you truly have no desire to change anything in your life, it's probably gonna be pretty challenging. But if you have a desire to feel better, improve your health, but
Mhm.
you're not feeling motivated to go to the gym or make all these other changes, I would start small. Like what feels like the lowest barrier to entry? The one thing you can do that feels so realistic, you're like, that's simple, like no problem at all. Something
Mhm.
as easy as like, okay, I'm gonna have breakfast before my coffee, or I'm gonna drink a glass of water before I have my coffee. Like keep it super simple to start rather than jumping all in and doing all the things at once. And then that's where you start to build these habits and routines that are going to carry you through those low motivation times.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I get for myself, kind of to go through an example, like I have the desire to feel good throughout the day. And I know that I feel crappy when I have coffee first.
Mhm.
Um, and in an ideal world, I will have some sort of breakfast made, like meal prepped, so that I can get up and just like basically like warm up my breakfast and eat it and then drink
And
my
go.
coffee. Like on the days when I'm waking up really early. But like I that's not an ideal world.
We
You
don't
know,
live an ideal world all the
yes,
time.
I don't live in that. Every once in a while it happens, but not as often as I would like. So, so like there are some days when I just have a piece of toast with some butter because I know I have to eat something. And it's easy for me and it also tastes good. Where I'm like, there's other things in my fridge that's healthier, but when I'm waking up super early, like 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm not I'm not gonna have even like eggs. Just doesn't sound
Yeah.
very good at
Yeah.
that time of day.
So I think the big takeaway from today is motivation is not reliable. It is fickle. So we
Yes.
like it, we want it around as much as possible, but we can't rely on it. So I think my question for you for this week is, are there areas of your life where you feel stuck because you're relying on motivation? And how can you start to lean into discipline and build habits that are going to actually get that needle moving for you?
That is an awesome question. So think on that and come back on Thursday and we'll see you then.